And here we go again. We are on another episode with Real Talk with JT. And guys, this one I'm super excited about because it's all about real estate investors. And I have someone really special over here, which I'm looking to learn a lot from because she is not just a real estate investor, she is a mega real estate investor. So, Amy Johnson, Amy, thank you so much from Utah that you make it to the call. I appreciate you. Thank you for jumping on.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
So, Amy, I know everyone I speak to, everyone wants to get into real estate investments, right? Like everyone wants to create some type of either a secondary income for them and the family, or maybe some generation wealth, something they can leave for the kids in the future, right?
Yeah.
What were some of the reasons for you to really get into real estate?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I would preference your statement ahead of there of everybody likes to talk about it. Not everybody wants to make the sacrifices in order to do it. Okay? So that's one thing to there's one thing to talk about it and then there's one thing to actually do it. Um we became real estate investors and I remember the item pivotably because it was like such a monumental time in my life. And see, I was pregnant. I had two young boys. They're 13 months apart, and I was pregnant with my third. And I remember we had this very small house. I remember opening up our my mail and looking at this Sally Mae student loan debt and being like, okay, we are scraping by as is right now. Like, we are trying to decide, do we spend money on diapers or gas in the car? Like, we were very, very tight. Sharing a meal at Cafe Rio was like, that's like a local food place for us, was like a very big treat for us for our date night. So we came from nothing and we had this huge amount of student loan debt and we're just like, what do we do with this? Where are we going to go? Because the whole idea of what I was taught is go to school, get your education, doesn't matter what you need to do to get there, just get there, get your degree, and then you'll get a good job. You work really, really hard, use your 401k, and then eventually you'll be able to retire. And I just was like, I can't live like this and be this scraping by like this and trying to decide what we're doing with our lives um in order to like just to live. And so that's when we decided, okay, we need to make some monumental decisions and maybe some extra sacrifices in order to go to the next step. And so we started to research and started to look at different mentors and what, we just were engrossing ourselves into real estate investing. And what can we do? And then that's what we decided. Our first step was we moved out of our cute little quaint house. We sold everything possible inside of our house as far as like furniture or I washed windows and I made some side money by tutoring and my husband donated plasma, like everything possible to earn up enough for a down payment to buy another primary residence that was this gross, stinky, ugly, disgustingly smelled. Like it was disgusting house that we bought and we moved into and we worked on that. So that was like our first step. So it was some sacrifices. That's why I'm saying like sometimes people talk about things, but do they really want to make the sacrifices to move forward? Now, does that mean every individual that wants to get in real estate investing has to move into a gross, stinky house? No. But at that time, we didn't have any other options. And we were looking at like, we're totally grassrooting, like, okay, strap booting or whatever the phrase is like, we're going to make this happen and we're going to make some monumental changes. And our family all thought we were just absolutely crazy during it.
Yeah.
So,
No, this is so good, and thank you so much for sharing this because this is like behind the scenes, right? It's not always a glamour and rainbow and sunshine. It's like nobody really talks about those struggles and the sacrifices which you have to really go through to be successful, right, in something which you
Yeah.
want to do.
And a lot of times people say like, "Oh, you were like an overnight success or you were so lucky." And we joke and we say, "Yeah, we were really lucky to have an overnight 10-year
Mhm.
success plan." Like it took us 10 years to get here, you know. It's not like if you asked me if back in that day when I was opening that letter, if I would be closing on a $20 million deal, I'd be like, no, there's that's more money I'd ever see in my lifetime.
There's no
So
way.
no way. Yeah. So those were some of the
it's
steps.
it's it's pretty incredible. And so I just want to rewind and go a little back. So I know you said you bought the primary residence, right? So you kind of a house hack the house.
Yep.
Uh, what did you do before? Like I know you were a teacher, right?
Yeah.
So you
So
were
I was
you
a
were
school
teaching.
teacher. I was a school teacher. I did teach because school teachers don't make very much money, especially in Utah. And so I had two jobs. I was a school teacher, and then at night I would actually teach women that were like on this WIC program, like it's a budget program. Anyway, I would
Hmm.
teach them about budgeting and meal planning and things like that that I would teach with them. And so yeah, I was a school teacher before, and then we were doing investing. I didn't become an agent until 3 years into our investing journey. That then I decided
And
like,
why did you
okay,
become an agent?
why did I?
Hmm.
Um, my husband was like, okay, so we were talking about it at that time. I actually had I was pregnant with my fourth, I remember, and we were doing some flips at that time, and we had a good agent, but we were doing a lot of the work. I remember especially one of them. We found the house, but we used the agent, and then we sold the house. We found the buyer, and we used an agent, and we just were using it so often. We were doing it so often, and Jared's like, "Wait, you're teaching these concepts?" Because at that time, I was like teaching first time home buyer
Hmm.
classes with extension to like the general public. So he's like, "You're teaching these classes or doing a ton of real estate. Why don't you get your own license and be able to do, so we can benefit and go from there with it." And so we said, "Okay, maybe that is the best step." I will preference though, when I became an agent, it was helpful. However, our real estate investing took a small pause with that because I got in the trap of being like, "Oh, this is a perfect deal for so and so," or "This is a perfect deal for so and so." And then I remember my husband be like, "Wait, what about a deal for us? Like, why wouldn't we be taking care of us and our family?" And then that's where I got like, "Oh, you're right. I'm getting trapped in the world of commissions and not looking at the bigger picture of what I wanted to do." And that's actually a trap I see happen with a lot of agents. They get really focused on the commissions and the day-to-day transaction stuff that they forget about their own generational wealth, like what their financial picture is looking like, and that they could maybe, if they're getting 20 offers on that property, maybe they should be part of that property instead.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, tell us more about it. I remember, and that's where we met, right, at the Town Ferry event when you used to be an agent, and I still remember exactly. This was, I believe, in San Jose. We were in the Disneyland, and we were talking investments, and you were like, I probably gotta go all in on the investments. That's something I really am passionate about, right? And then you just took the leap of faith, but it took you some time to really make that move. So what were some of the reasons you did, and like how did you get over that kind of letting that business go and taking the leap of faith really in you, and making the move into being a full-time real estate investor?
Yeah. So I would say one of the pivotal parts that allowed me and still allows me to do, because you have to remember sometimes when you're working on investments or development, a lot of things I work on are developments, and you can work for 2 years on a project and not get any money, like you not get paid. Right. So that's a big difference when it comes to like investing
Yeah.
and what you're gonna do. Right. And so a pivotal part was, and these were a couple important steps that we took. My husband had a corporate job that he worked with, and he was working on getting his license. He got his license, and he was actually Jared is an incredible agent and incredible salesperson, and really
Shout
good.
out to Jared.
But I credit that because I would not be able to that were important. And one is he got his license, was working on the business, and see, I'll slightly fall back is right before he quit his license. Before he quit his job, there was a time that I actually was overwhelmed with work and everything. This was before I got into Tom Ferry, and I actually quit real estate. I said, "Okay, I'm way overwhelmed. I have 4 kids. I just can't." I was almost yeah, I just felt overwhelmed. And so I quit. I took the whole summer off and I was like, I'm going to quit real estate. And unfortunately, my ADHD sometimes goes a little bit all or nothing. And so that's a problem of mine. But so we said, okay, that's not going to do it because I still love real estate. You just needed to balance it better. And so he came in and was like, okay, systems and processes, let's balance this. Let's make this better so that we can do both. We can still do some investments, we can still do our business. And that's when I was able to like, he helped me like, okay, I'm going to work smarter and not so much so hard, and maybe that's like, oh, we need to add some additional employees and some other steps. So we took those steps, and then he officially quit his corporate job was a big step for us. And once he quit and he was doing that really well, I said, honestly, you're running this way better than I ever was. You run the brokerage or the team. At that time, we were a team. Now we're a brokerage, but you run the team, and I'm going to focus. Let's give us 2 years to be after that call. At that specific Tom Ferry event, I actually had the privilege of talking with Tom Ferry, and asked him the question, like, I I don't know how to focus. Like I have so many different opportunities and they're all coming to me. What do I do? And I feel like I'm a terrible mom because of it. And all these things that are coming at me. And it was a really critical conversation for me because he's just like, I want you to laser focus on what matters most for your family. And so it kind of brought me back to those grassroots of why we were doing this investment journey in the first place, why we were taking on these things. And it was to create a better outlook, financial outlook for my children. And that was really critical for me. And so because of that, I was able to like, okay, I'm going to focus, and Jared's going to take on this. He's going to handle that. I still have my license. I just only really use my own deals. I don't prospect or do any other residential deals for anybody else. And so
You still Jared still charges you a split on your transactions as well, or no?
yeah, yeah, he still takes a couple. He takes a small hit of my stuff. I
Yeah,
only get like
good.
5 transactions, but they're big transactions when I get them. But yeah, that's all I get. so so then we went all in
Sweet.
on investing, and that's where I created the most traction. Not everybody has that luxury to only focus on investing, but it did allow me, I would say use that as like a pivot point of how can I get to this point where I could only focus on investing for my family to really grow it. Um, what do I need to do as far as be living cheaper or, paying off things or, living within my means or all of those steps so that you could take those steps of not having to be like, okay, I got to have these commissions first. And then I can spend the rest of my night hours on real estate investing. Cause that's what I was kind of doing. I was starting like, okay, I'm working my day job as an agent. I'm mixing in kids in here and running a family. And then we're doing these investment deals too happening at night and on the weekends and these other things. And that's where it was stretched thin for it.
Yeah. Now, and how long ago is this? Like, how many years ago did you, make that switch and went full time into being an investor?
What is that happening? Let's see, 3, 4. I would say it was about 5, 6 years ago. 6 years ago.
Wow.
That
Wow.
it was like full time on investing for it. Maybe 5 actually. I think I'm on my 6. I guess I'm on my 6th year, but
Wow.
yeah. So it was if you look back at what we were accomplishing, the only other time that we were making that large of progress was at the very, very beginning when we were moving almost like every year into a new house and it was a crazy time. It was an incredible time to be buying properties at that time for us because everybody was really scared in the industry, and when there's fear, that's when actually the best time to buy, right? So we went all in. We kind of went from the position of like, well, we're not in the best financial situation anyway. Like we're okay, we're not bad, but we were just back then we were just like, we don't have a lot to our name, so what's the worst that can happen? You know, let's just go all in. And so we did. We went all in and we're a little bit crazy doing the house hacking, moving, multiple times and doing the flips and, all those different avenues that you could think of. Buying the short sales back then, it was short sales that were a big thing. So, yeah, that's what we did to get there. And so then that pause of being an agent and I made good income, but the time that I was making great income, we actually weren't making a ton of investments at that time, which is ironic, right? Like that's when you should be. But yeah, it's all
So I know
about what
you
you
said, so I mean, I know you said, in the time of the fear, it's actually the best time to invest. And I know there's a lot of fear like right now in the market, a lot of uncertainty. So would you say it's a good time to invest now?
Well, I always say the best time, it's kind of like who's that quote? The best time to plant a cherry tree is today, or I'm totally messing that quote up. Never mind. But the goal is I would say real estate investing is a long term game. If anybody's trying to sell you something that's a get rich quick or it's a really huge turnaround or anything like that, they're trying to sell a product or they're trying to sell a service. So um, it's not a get rich quick. And if you understand that going in, that it's a long game, I don't care when you bought. You just start buying and you'll see the numbers. If you buy when the numbers make sense, then as long as the numbers make sense at that moment when you buy, it's most likely going to make sense down the road. Even the people that in what was it, 2007 and stuff like that, that were buying homes at a really high price, we would kill to buy those homes right now in the 2007 price, right? Like
Mhm.
right before when it was the top high before the crash. I would love to go and buy some of those homes in 2007. I remember thinking in 2016, 2017, thinking, oh, I don't know, these homes are so expensive, and they were like, oh, that's like a really expensive house. It's like 400,000, 350,000. Now that same house is in the fives, for my market. So it just depends. I would say buy now. If your numbers make sense for you, make a movement now. Because don't ever try to time the market. It's kind of like trying to do day trading in the stock market. And it's
Yeah.
really good.
I mean, this is so good, and I agree with you, right? The truth is in the numbers. So, when it comes to the numbers, like, what are you looking at? Like, where do you want to be at for the deals to, be even considered?
Well, see, my my qualifications are probably not going to be what a typical qualifications are for somebody that's going on their own. Mostly because we we source and are working on really, I mean, we get so many different opportunities. We make sure it's either a fast no, or we only work on it if it's like a hell yes. Okay, so those are our projects. And so, for example, I have 3 projects happening right now. They have like a 4.4 gross multiplier. That's like a 44% IRR. Like those are bigger numbers happening in it, and we're excited about those deals. So we kind of have like a bare minimum of an IRR being like a 16%. That over time, IRR is your, like, how long your money is in the deal and when you get your money back out and what's that return. Like that's what's kind of measuring an IRR. So in case people don't, like, sometimes people are like, what is that? So that's our usual return. So when you hear people like, oh, we're buying it on a 5 cap or a 6 cap, we're targeting items that we can either build, value add, or um, by operations, or by, you know, improving the property. And we're going to make that better. We refinance. Our structure is we usually pay back the investors at the refinance. But here's the best part for the investors is they stay in as an owner. Even though they got all their capital back, they stay in as an owner for the rest of that maybe 10 years that we own that asset. And so because of that, we have so many repeat investors that are like, "Hey, Amy, what's your next deal? What's your next deal? I don't want your refinance money. I want you to put in the next deal." So that allows us to have multiple repeat investors, allows us to continue to buy more and more assets that continue to do well.
So good. So good. I mean, I love it. So, guys, we are live with Amy Johnson talking about real estate investment. So, if you have any questions, just drop in a comment below. If you like it, give us a thumbs, give us some hearts, and share it with the people as well so they can get some value out of this as well. So, I know we talk about investments, Amy, and I know you said you did flips, you did house hacks, and now it sounds like you're doing syndication and funds. Like, why did you choose that type of a vehicle over, doing it everything by yourself?
Yeah, and that was a big step for us. Well, first of all, no matter how much money you have, you end up, if you have the right type of deal flow coming in, you want to be able to handle multiple deals. So right now I have 15 different deals happening. If I didn't use syndication as a tool or a fund as a tool, I wouldn't be able to take part in that. So that's number 1. Number 2, it kind of drives with my fundamental approach of, like, a core value of mine is teaching the public about how to invest and how they can be empowered by attaching themselves to somebody that's, a strong GP or a general partner or a sponsor that's handling these deals. So they can still do their 9 to 5. They like what they're doing. They're good at it. Don't overthink it and allow us, put their money to work and let it get put in this operation machine, and give them back, spit them back out a return. And so they really like it. So that's a core part for me. Like that's a real core part for me to have. Then we've got the other part, but I would say the second part in there was, it was about scaling. When I was using my own money, sure, I could buy flips and I could buy here, and I even sold some of my single families and moved into a larger asset in about 2015. Excuse me, that had, we went in storage units at that time, and I was an LP investor. I started as an LP investor. So, um, and so we went through, and sorry, I'm gonna text my assistant. Grab me water. um, so 1 second. Okay. Anyway, so I lost my train of thought. Oh, I started as LP investor on a larger asset because I wanted to scale. I couldn't just do that. I was the LP investor going into there. And then I saw what they were doing and I was working through that. So does that
Yeah, that
help?
was
Does that
actually, yeah, that was super helpful. And I mean, there's actually a question from Monica, which is kind of super relevant to what you were talking about. How can a newbie get started in syndication? Like, I know you said you were first, and you threw a bunch of terms which I want to go over. You said GPLP, like listing presentation. Like, what does that stand for? What is the lingua?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so first of all, so in a deal, in a syndication, it's first of all, let me go over a quick part. A syndication is where we bring other individuals into the fund, into a into an investment tool. Okay. An LP means they're limited partners. A GP is a general partner. They're the people that do everything inside of the deal. They finance the deal, they're signing on the loan, they're everything. Okay. These guys are completely passive. In order for them to be completely passive, we have to do, we have to file special paperwork with the SEC or be able to have, we have to, yeah, we just have to file special paperwork and the government is over us. And so we have to follow certain rules and restrictions because they're completely passive. Okay. It's not a joint venture. A joint venture is like everybody's an active role and they're putting their money together and they're doing a deal. So I did a lot of joint ventures before, and then syndications means that they're really passive. So because of that, you have to file certain paperwork and everything else there. But because of that, the government makes us qualify two different types of investors. So that's one important part. There's an accredited investor and there's non-accredited investors. The only reason why you need to know this distinction is there's certain offerings that just aren't available for you. And if you're a brand new newbie, you're probably a non-accredited investor. Possibly. I could be wrong. So here's the two distinctions, and I'll go over them really quick. So it's 200K. You
Hmm.
either have one or two designations. So number one, you have $1 million of net worth. Okay. That $1 million of net worth cannot include your primary residence. The second one, so that means like you can catch all your life insurance, cash value life insurance, your stocks, your bonds, you know how to calculate net worth. And then you take out, this is what all my values are worth, and this is all my debts, and equate that. And is that $1 million? The second qualification is if I'm single and I only file my taxes separately, then I make 200K a year for at least 2 years. Or if I'm married and I'm filing jointly, or I file my taxes jointly with an individual, I have to make 300K a year. Okay. So those are the qualifications. And why that matters is there's different offerings in a syndication of which type of investors that I can take. So if I'm ever advertising a deal or talking about it on social media or anything like that, then you can just count on it being a 506C, which I won't go into those, but it just means I can only take accredited investors' money. If you're a non-accredited, you'd say, well, that's not fair. How do I get into that? Well, you would have to have like a relationship with me, and you'd have to already be like in my database. And I'm having multiple conversations. I have a long-standing relationship. Think of it as like a family and friends deal. I can raise family and friends money there. I have a lot more paperwork associated with that. And so sometimes I don't, now we're doing larger deals. Sometimes I just don't bother. When I first started, though, I would work with them because my family and friends were what I had. And so I would do that extra paperwork and I would go through that process to be able to offer that. So if you're wondering is like how you could do it as a newbie, well, number one, if you've never done a syndication, I would strongly advise you, if you want to be like the GP, like if you want to be the person that's doing the deal, I strongly advise you to do it, have somebody else on your GP team that has done it before. If you were all blind leading the blind, I mean, this is big deals. Like you can get put in jail if you do it wrong. So it's and them saying You saying like, I didn't know any better. They don't, the court doesn't take that as an excuse. So you can't. So I would say make sure you align yourself with somebody else that's on your GP team that has done a syndication. Okay. However, one thing I've seen ways that you can be part of one, just like what I did, I was an LP, I was a limited partner, I was a passive person coming into an investment, and I wanted to get my feet wet of like, what does this look like? What was my experience? How did I like it? What was I frustrated with? What did I want more of? All of those steps. And then it allowed me to become a better GP or a general partner and be able to do it better, because I had the experience as a passive investor. Doesn't mean, we'll still be passive investors in other deals. I just do predominantly, I'm mostly a GP person putting most of my deals together.
Now, quick question. So, if you are a GP, do you need to invest into the deal as well? Do you need to have some skin in the game?
Um, Legally, technically, no. Most to see if they're a good GP, usually it's you want them to have some skin in the game, because if they don't have anything at all, and it's kind of like, oh, you're not touching anything. However, make sure you equate what their skin in the game is. So, for example, from coming from a development standpoint, I'll work on a property for a good year and a half, and I won't bring the investors money in until I'm really confident that I've bypassed a lot, I've mitigated a lot of the risks for the individuals, and I've been working for free for a year, dumping in all these different due diligence items like a geotech and the survey and phase one, like all the feasibility study, like all of these things. So we will upfront that cash and put those in there, to make sure that deal is good. And so, where I have the choice, I could actually go and sell this now entitled project for an increase, like almost for double, sometimes quadruple, just depends on the scenario. I could sell that, but usually I bring that value that I create of the development side, and I bring it in as my equity. Like, hey, I've not even as equity, but just as like, hey, I'm bringing this as extra. There's extra cream on this deal for the investors because of my work, but I'm not putting like a ton of extra cash. Like, maybe I'm not investing in a million, but I am investing in a lot of time and effort into a deal. Plus, I don't upsell my deal to the investors. Some developers will do that. They'll take the entitled price. They'll say, "Oh, we bought it for a million. Now it's worth 2 million. So we're going to sell it to the deal for 2 million." They've increased. They pocket that a million, and I'm not saying it's bad because they got to keep the lights on, but they take that million and then the deal starts at it with two. But I take it as like, hey, we're going to bring this value in to your project. So the short answer is no, I don't put like a ton of, if you're talking only capital side, I don't put a ton of capital in, but I am bringing a lot of value into the project.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it has to make sense end of the day for the outside investors, right? To
Yeah.
really invest into the deal doesn't matter how much do you make, you know. So, what are some of the common mistakes? Would you say if someone maybe dabbling with investments, done some flips, done some long-term, short-term investments, maybe has some portfolio and now really wants to scale and expand and maybe do a syndication or joint venture, like what are some of the most common traps and mistakes you see people do?
Um, yeah, that's a big question. There's a lot there. I would say the number one, and I actually made this mistake for starting. Before I was Y Street Capital, I was on my own as my own company. And I was good at raising money. I could raise the money for it, but I realized I didn't have all the other tools, the organization and the other part. It was critical. See, I'm only one person. My team has 5 people in it. We have 5 partners besides there's other auxiliary, staff members and stuff. But
Hmm.
each one of our 5 members of our partners have different personality types and have a different important skill set. And if I was going back in time, um, and I had that team in place back then, because that's where we've really taken off, is once we got a team in place. I would absolutely say that that is critical. The biggest fault I see, especially as like new investors coming into the market, I can always tell if it's a new investor that's having a conversation with me, because they're using the word I a lot. And it's all about what are my returns and it's all a very, very single, and they don't want to share in the deal, and they don't want to collaborate to create a better, bigger, bigger payoff or a bigger deal. And because of that, I think it really hurts their growth, because they're like, oh, I don't want partners. I don't believe in partners. I heard partners are all terrible, and you hear all sorts of different things, just like, oh, I hear nightmares of rentals or things like that, right? There's
Hmm.
always, you can find any kind of negative comment of what you're trying to work and obtain. And so if I was going to flashback and move back, I would have created my team faster and have it. So like I have an incredible, like I'm horrible at Excel. Like it's almost laughable. I'm really bad at it, but I have an incredible partner that's a genius at Excel and performance. I have a guy that's awesome at due diligence and really looking at all the details of like, do, in development world of everything. We just have investor relations. We have like a senior gen person that's over everything and very, very knowledgeable. So I wish I would have created that team before. So because you can't do it all by yourself. So that's number one, is very critical. And that could be for whatever asset, whatever asset you're trying to obtain. It doesn't, I don't care what you list there. You need to have a team of individuals. It can't be only you. So that's one thing. That's when I started. I realized I was over my head on one deal, and then so I'm like, oh shoot, what do I do? And I paid for a mentor, and then that mentor actually ended up being down the road, because we did so much later, and we worked so well together. Fast forward, we end up becoming partners in there. So yeah,
Pretty incredible, right? Like you never know where the road takes you.
yeah,
I
absolutely.
love that. And this kind of, I mean, this kind of reminds me, now mirroring it with, real estate sales. It's kind of like being a solo agent and trying to build a team where you can really, scale the business out and really leverage the time and leverage yourself as well, right? And other people's skill set.
Absolutely. I bring it back to like the time that I almost like quit real estate because I was overwhelmed, overworked, and I didn't have these systems, processes, or organization. Obviously, organization is a key factor in my life of what I struggle with, but that's
Hmm.
why I input awesome people that are organized to help me, right? And help me go through there. So just like Jared really helped.
AKA Jared.
Yeah, yeah. So just like Jared helped me systemize and process, like, okay, here, this is what we're doing to make a business instead of just a job. He really helped instrument it, like, so that we were making a business. With that, then and we put the different people in place, right? Like we had this operations manager that was really good at details and all of that, and a marketing manager, and now we have a recruitment officer, and like all these different steps. They all have different personalities, they all have different skill sets, and it just goes really, really well. So that's I realize, and now that you reflect back on it, I don't know why it didn't dawn on me back then, like, hey, remember, you already went through this. You got burnt out. You didn't do well by yourself. You think you can handle everything all by yourself. And then where you really took off, that's when our business really took off, is when we got that organization in place. And just like that, with a residential team and brokerage, we're doing the same thing over here now on the investment side of thing. It's like it's a company. It's not just a side gig that you're working on.
Yeah, it's not just a job; it's a legit business. I love
Yeah.
that. So I know you said bringing other people and really utilizing their strengths and skill set, right? So I would
Mhm.
like to ask you, like, what is your strong suit? Like, what do you bring to the table when it comes to your team?
Um, yeah, that's good. What do I bring? Let's say I'm excellent talking with people. I think I'm a really good teacher coming back from being like taking that school teacher part. So educating and teaching people, there's no dumb questions. So I'll do one-on-one meetings all day, every day, helping a basic investor like, hey, how do I buy my first house and convert that? Take what's my game plan to be able to go from this step all the way to be able to be an LP investor in a syndication and take those baby steps to get there. How do I do that? And we have done that. We've done that with multiple people. And if they actually listen, it can be monumental. And people are always asking, like, why don't you charge for this? I can't believe this. You've changed my life. But that's kind of my um it's just that's a big part of my why is education and especially educating women in helping them make sure that they're financially independent. And you don't I mean, look, I love my husband and what he does, but I also am like, hey, it's important for me to be able to hold my own in finances and everything else when it comes to my net worth and everything else. Like we are one as when it comes to our incomes, but I've just seen a lot of individuals that are like, I only depend on my husband, and then something happens down the road, and it could be just a tragedy, like he could pass away, or worse, like could like, cheat or something like that. And then you're left stranded because you only focus on your children, which is fabulous. Focus on your children, but also focus on your children's life. Like what else could they do?
Future. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, you can never be, you can never be over prepared in life, right?
Yeah.
There's a really good question, Monica. Thank you for asking. How do you manage your deal flow, and what's your primary tool for finding the good deals? I know you said you have 15 deals. You're working right now. So those
Mhm.
are like active deals, or is it in like the preliminary stage where you're doing the research and really clarifying and see if it's going to be something feasible?
No, those are active deals that we like currently have. We've either bought the land, we've already raised the money, we're
Wow.
working on those deals. Um, so those are active deals. We get multiple deals, and sometimes the joke is Amy turn because I am really good at deal flow. I guess I didn't quite. I teach, I create, I find opportunities, and then I'm really good at like investors helping investors be able to be empowered to invest in an LP. So those are probably my 3 parts that I bring to my company. So because of that, we joke and say, "Amy, turn on your deal flow." Of like, "Hey, we're looking for a couple more deals. Turn it on." And that's just networking with a lot of different individuals. I always make sure to really compensate people that bring me a deal. So I have a lot of wholesalers that bring me deals. I have agents that are like, "Hey, I have no idea how to do this land deal." And I'll let them either be part of a GP, like, "Hey, you bring me an awesome opportunity, we can co-GP it," or, sometimes they only want a commission, and I give them a commission for, like, handling the transaction of that land or that asset. Um, but so we always compensate, we always make it very, very fair for them, give them the choice of what they want to do there, and then move from we take those steps and then um that's I honestly most of the deals are coming to us. Not very often am I looking. I was like, I never look on LoopNet. I mean, LoopNet's not a great place to look for deals anyway, but I don't look in those types of things. It's all about networking with the brokers or people that are boots on the ground in the location that I'm looking for. And I put it out there on social media like, hey, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Let's put together a deal. And And those, I mean, all of my deals that I'm currently working on right now were brought to me by somebody else.
And would you say they're all off the market, or some of them are on the market, but you just have the relationship with
Well,
the agent so they contact you?
I have one deal that was actually listed for land. And it was really competitive, so I don't know if I would love to do that one again. I will make some good money off of it though, so I guess it was worthwhile. We'll make about 3 million off of that project.
Sweet.
Um, yeah, so we bought it for 3. We'll sell it in the high sixes, in the low sevens for it. So, um,
And
yeah,
what is
so
the
I would say
timeline on that deal? Like, is it 10 years? Is it 2 years? Is it
that
one
one's
year?
that one's been a little bit slower than we wanted. It'll be about a year and a half that we're on.
That's not,
So
not
2
bad.
years.
Making
Yeah,
million, two
2 million,
million bucks in year and a half. Yeah,
not a bad return for
not
it.
a bad ROI. I love that.
So,
And also Monica was asking, so what tool do you use to manage those deals? Do you have on spreadsheet, or is there like a third party tool you can sign on?
yeah, no, they just get emailed to us. They come to me, and then I actually see, the problem is I wanna do every deal, so I'm always like, "Oh, yeah, this is great, let's do it," but we found I gotta move them to, and that's what I was doing in the past, right? I would say yes to multiple deals instead of being more selective, before I had a team, and so we moved from that to now I actually don't look at all the deals. I actually bring them to my due diligence guy, and he goes through and looks at the numbers and looks at, like, is this in a floodplain, or all these different steps of, he has different checklists and things, and then he brings and says, okay, this one looks kind of good, let's look into this more, and then it engrosses our entire team. So Paul is that gentleman's name. I joke with him, he's like the deal killer, like he'll kill the deal if it doesn't work. But that's great because sometimes I'm always like an optimist, like, oh, this is incredible, this is awesome, and I'll talk myself out of, well, that's okay, we can work past that. Even if that's near that, we can work past that. And so I actually am grateful for people like him that are like, okay, well, wait, look at this step, and ultimately, like, look, if we could work past it, we probably could still make it, but we have so many different opportunities. It's not like we're in a
Struggling, yeah.
yeah, we're not struggling there, so why not only go with the best opportunities?
It makes sense. And I mean, you get a better return for investors. They're going to want to invest more, and then you can buy more deals end of the day, right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
I love that. Monica has another question. What are some of the actionable steps to get from the smelly house stage to the multi-million dollar?
That's an excellent, so make sure you're willing to take the first step, because that's the biggest part, is so many people won't go to the smelly house step. And so they've wasted, like, they're just like, oh, I'm going to save my money. And so then they've saved their money and they've wasted 5 years of real estate growth, by not taking that step. So I would say take that step as step number one. The step two would be, um, surround yourself by others. Make sure you have a circle around you that are people are doing bigger deals, because as individuals, we don't like to be separated from the pack. It's just like a natural instinct of ours. And so if we are completely alienated by we're the only one in our whole family. I mean, look, me and my husband both came from very poor upbringings. So we are definitely going against the curb. And I think that actually was harder for us. And it wasn't until we surrounded ourselves around other individuals that were doing similar things that allowed us to be like, "Oh, okay, they're doing these things too." And it helped me. Then I was able to, like, look at what are they doing so that I could feel comfortable. Like back then, so I would say we went from the smelly house. The second part is we leaned in on our agent. At that time, he was like, "Oh, we find the deal. I'll help you find the money." The money, he'd always say, that agent at that time, he'd always say, "The money is the easy part, Amy. We got to find the deal, and we have to find, if you can be that." We at then we were really good bankable people. Like, we could credit. I mean, we are still bankable, but our loans for residential loans, it's a lot more complicated because of our tax returns. So then we are W-2 people, so we're very easily bankable. And so he'd be like, "Oh, I can get you money. That's no issue." Um, and so he was a big step for me. He, like, helped me feel comfortable getting into the flips and stuff. And then there's just multiple times, we were scared out of our wits when we first put in our rental. We were so scared. I just remember shaking, taking the call, being like, "Yeah, yeah, you can come Saturday and check it out. Yeah, okay, it's really great house. Okay, bye." Being really upset. Like, I was just, like, so nervous to talk to these individuals. But we did it. And so, taking those steps, so we went from take the smelly house. I was able to lean on our good realtor at that time of, like, here's how you do investments. And then I would say the biggest part, another step, was I was able to surround myself by other individuals doing similar things, and make it seem like it's not like I'm doing this foreign thing. Foreign. And those were some, and then and hiring mentors, or putting people around for their mentors that are giving you the coaching, because no matter what step, even if it's buying your first home as, like, a duplex, it's going to scare you. You're going to get scared, and that's
Mhm.
okay. Just being scared just means it's a little bit uncomfortable. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean that it's a bad step, but you have to break through that, being uncomfortable, to go to your next step. So when I was doing our next, like, I mean, I still get uncomfortable occasionally when we're doing on a new step. Like, last year, we closed on a huge land deal. It was 1,800 acres. It's $20 million deal, and I felt uncomfortable during different times of that period, because it was out of my comfort zone. We never bought 1,800 acres. I've never done a deal that I had to pay $20 million of cash to. I've leveraged for that, but I've never had to do that. My first big bank loan, I had to pay, sign my name on. That was uncomfortable, but I was grateful that we did it. And it's really, jumped.
And I like, Amy, you said something which I think is super important. You said you are you are not afraid to go back down to the smelly house, right? Because you've done it before, and you know that even though if you will go back down to zero, you can make it back again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing to know, um, my family still makes fun of me a little bit. Like, I had a family member say, "You're the cheapest rich person I've ever known." And so, and not cheap as in, like, but I think she meant more frugal. Like, we are very frugal with our lifestyle in today's, like, with the exception of travel. So, like, that's I love to travel, so I will splurge on travel, and I will go lots of places with traveling. But our basic home life, like our individual family home, and our cars are all paid for. And I know, oh, you shouldn't leverage, pay cash for your house, cars, whatever. But, like, we have a very small mortgage. We have paid for cars. We try to live frugally with our lifestyle, so that it's not a burden, so that we can keep moving. I mean, that's one thing that's helped us be able to take our investment and just keep rolling it over. What's next? What's next? So that when we get a payout for an investment, it's not like, "Oh, good, we've got to pay a huge chunk to our lifestyle for it," because we got over, unless it's, like I said,
Mhm.
unless it's a trip. Don't get me. That's my little bit of a nemesis of my week. Yeah, that's my weak point,
So
is for travel.
so you guys still sharing the meal at the Rio with Jared?
Jared refuses to share meals. So now, because he's like, that was something we had to do, and I don't want to do it anymore ever. So no, I guess we're not that frugal, but we're definitely not like Lambo people or, like super ritzy
Mm,
clothes or I don't know how to explain it. I mean, if you ask my kids, somebody asks, I don't know how it got brought up about like your parents and our kids don't really realize, I think, what our net worth is and what we own. I know that we're working because we talk about that often, like what we're working hard for our future and that mom has a goal and like on my phone I have like a countdown of like, okay, I'm going to achieve this goal, so they see that. So we have talked about, they know that, and it's kind of the growing joke of mom stop buying more land or mom stop buying, cuz so but they're hard workers and I'm trying to not raise like really entitled children, I guess.
yeah.
That, like, think, like, it doesn't matter, money grows on trees. So, I might be screwing my kids up, who knows, but I all my kids, like, my 10 and 12-year-old have a steady babysitting job that they do every
Mm,
week for their own money for somebody else in the neighborhood, and my 15-year-old has a job, and my 16-year-old has a job. So everybody has a job somewhere.
good.
Like, I try to really insist the value of hard work and, that if you want something, let's achieve it. Like, we set these goals because mom and dad aren't just gonna buy it for you. So,
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I mean that's super important skill set, one needs to have, I love it. I just want to switch gears a little bit. I know you said the financing for the residential and for the syndication, the commercial, very different, right? So you on the GP side, and then you have the LP side, right? The limited partners. So how does the financing works? Are those the LPs who has to qualify for, or is it the GPs? And now you have to get like a $20 million loan, and you need to have probably millions and millions of dollars in income to qualify for it, right? So how does that work in syndication?
Well, you don't have to have all that money as to qualify it. They really qualify it based off the asset. Like, what is the asset going to generate? Because they don't care. I mean, they do care. They want to make sure you have some liquidity that be able to pay the payments in case things are a problem. And you do have to have like we have to share like our net worth, like, okay, these people are responsible with what they are. But um but it doesn't mean you have to have like years worth of those payments in there. So we are the GP is always the ones that qualify. The LPs are not on the loan.
Okay.
With the exception, if for some reason you're a limited, but honestly, you wouldn't be a limited partner then, you'd probably be a GP. If you were bringing in the majority of the financing, like you owned a huge percentage of the ownership, anybody that owns like a large percentage of the ownership does need to be on the loan. So that's usually the GPs. The GPs are all on the loan usually. So we are the ones qualifying. That's why the limited partners have a lot of, that's one benefit from the limited partners to be able
Yeah.
to not have to worry about that. They could be part of, you could be you can be an owner and you could have shares now, and I could have shares in storage units and multifamily and mobile home parks and hotels, or like you have all these different assets and you could put $100,000 in each one and really to be able to diversify yourself instead of being like one major asset. Um so that can be a big benefit. Now, understand when it comes to the commercial world, our lending is different than residential world. We really qualify. You remember how I said I can get a commercial loan, but it's difficult for me to buy a residential house. Like, it's like a nightmare for me to try to buy a residential house. And so it's way easier for me to buy commercial instead. And so I look at those, we have these different loan products, and I mean, going with a good broker for your asset or a lender is just critical to make sure you have the best option. They go off a DCR, DSCR, not a DSCR loan. Those are options. That's debt service coverage limit. That's what that's called. So, I mean, there's those loans, and you can get those for like short term rentals or just even a single rental. You could get those. But we go with more like Fannie, Freddie, and HUD. And, I don't want to go into like all the different loan products, but there's a lot of different loan products that we go that are more, they're called industry, or they're just bigger loans. And so we will sign for, um, you know, a 10 million, a typical self-storage project is $10 million and for one, and that's for new construction. And so we will get that, and it's like a construction and then goes to perm for it. So perm, like permanent financing is what we call perm. So that, I don't know if that was a shotgun approach to your answer, if that answered what you were wanting. But yes, the GPs do sign for the loans for it, and they are big loans. But the only reason why we're comfortable with that is because we're confident in the asset, that the asset is paying for that loan. And the
And
bank,
how long it takes you on the average to really qualify the asset and do your due diligence?
yeah, I mean, a commercial loan is not a fast process. So anybody that's like, oh, I'm going to close this deal in 45 days, they're closing it with like bridge financing or seller financing or cash. Because that doesn't happen very often. And so all of our land deals we close with cash. And so because of
Mm.
that, now we've paid the cash for the deal for our land. And then while we're during the entitlement, then we move forward to the other loan. But it can take up to, I honestly, some of them take a long time, but it's usually 90 days for it. It can be faster. It can be faster. Um, but the problem is, especially for land development, it's usually not faster because we're waiting on the city for the approvals or our permits, or and the loan is requiring that. So it's kind of like hurry up and wait. So you hurry really, really fast to get them all their due diligence items. They give you like, yes, here's our loan commitment. We will give you this. We like this loan. And then we move forward and do like the appraisal. But we have to, part of their funding is sometimes the permits or other things. So
Mhm.
sometimes we're
That
waiting
makes
on that.
sense. I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it's 3:03. I really want to be mindful, of your time. I know you have, a few meetings right after. Uh, you know, what would you leave the viewers with? Like, if someone wants to get into investments, maybe syndication, maybe flips, like, what would be like your quick tip for them to get started?
Yeah, I would strongly, I'm going to like double down on, make sure you take that step of the smelly house, or like the first, whatever your first step is for your journey at that time. Take up the opportunity. I'm always amazed. Like I'll do like a speaking, like I did a speaking arrangement on Saturday with new investors, and I offered like, hey, I'll do a one-on-one with you, and help you with your investment journey. And I only had one person out of the entire crowd that thought, and then I was talking to other people, and they're like, oh, I felt too intimidated by it. And so, like, if you have people offering that mentorship, there's no catch. We're not selling coaching. There's nothing like that. We're honestly want to see where we can do to help you get to the next step. And then I really would think about the collaboration, be open to being an LP investor maybe first to see how it feels, see what it looks like. How is this? You can come into a syndication at 50,000 to, um, you know, 50,000 is the minimum investment. A lot of times, a lot of them are 100,000. Some are as small as 25 grand. I probably wouldn't be in that one, but, um, Yeah, so 50,000, like, that's you're buying a duplex almost in a lot of different markets for that amount, so why not be part of a bigger deal and see how you like it, see if you like, did you like that asset without taking all that risk? So I think it's an excellent baby step to get you there and then be happy with where you're going.
So good. So good. Well, Amy, thank you so much. Guys, if you guys like this, you got to give us the thumbs up. You got to give us like, and of course, you got to follow Amy at Invest with Amy. And
That's
look,
my
we
Instagram.
actually, we got Monica. She would like to take you on the offer. So we got one yes as well.
There you go. So there's an you can email me, amyj@ystreetcapital.com. You can look me up at ystreetcapital.com and be able to look in our and be part of a portal, see the portals, look at the different offerings that I have coming up with those high returns that you could be part of on there. We have a large self storage fund that's coming up. A fund is a little bit different than syndication. I won't go into that, but it's instead of one deal, it's multiple deals. So you're part of a lot of different self storage. So that's happening this Wednesday. If you're watching this after that, talk to me and let's set up a one-on-one and go from there. I'd love to help you with your investment journey and create that generational wealth.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amy. Guys, peace out.
Thanks, John.